Hey, it's Travis. Too many camp directors run just on gut feel. Our free Resilient Camp Blueprint Diagnostic is your dashboard for resilience. Take it today at camp.mba/Travis. Again, that's camp.mba/Travis.
This is CampHacker. Come find our show notes and our blog for camp directors and leaders at camphacker.tv.
Good day and welcome to our podcast. This is CampHacker episode 90, recorded on the 13th of April, 2016. On today's show, debriefing a day at camp with your staff. If you would like easy, automatic, free updates of our podcast, you can subscribe in iTunes or use the free Stitcher app. This week's CampHacker podcast is sponsored by Go Camp Pro. In a lot of ways, Go Camp Pro was built for directors just like you, people doing it all themselves. We designed this by asking ourselves, what resources do we wish that we had during our time as directors? The material will be helpful to those in their first 5 to 7 years of directing, but so much of it fits for camp directors who are looking for ways to make their camp life easier. To join, go to gocamp.pro. And this week's episode is sponsored by camp pros like you who support the show on Patreon. If you've got even one good idea from the CampHacker podcast, you could show your support for the show for as little as $1 per episode. We've got some great rewards too, just like a Kickstarter campaign. Please go to patreon.com/CampHacker. We hope you enjoy the CampHacker show.
Hello, Camp Pros, and welcome to the CampHacker podcast. My name is Travis Allison. I run Podcast Network and blog at camphacker.tv, and I am one of the co-founders of gocamp.pro.
Hi, I'm Joe Richards. I'm the executive director at Pierce Williams Christian Center, a United Church of Canada summer camp and retreat facility located in Fingal, Ontario, sort of halfway between Detroit and Toronto.
Hi, I'm Laura, and I am the director at Camp Stomping Ground, a independent nonprofit camp in Binghamton, New York.
And I'm Jaleesa Danhoff. I'm the assistant director at Camp Nuevo, an independent not-for-profit all-girls resident camp in West Michigan, celebrating our 90th summer this year.
Awesome. Well, welcome to you, Joe. It's great to have you here today.
Thank you. Thank you. It's always good to be back.
Looking forward to spending some time together tomorrow at the Society of Camp Directors dinner. Laura, thanks for coming back. It's also great to see you so much this week.
Absolutely, Travis. Good to see you too.
And Jaleesa, thank you for joining us for podcast number 2 on CampHacker.
I made it to a second one.
You did. That makes you you're part of a very selected group of people. Pretty soon you'll be like Paul, who'll be approaching his 10th episode. Paul sends his regrets. He's got a sick kid at home, so he's not able to join us for part 2 of this discussion called Debriefing Your Day at Camp. But I want to make sure we covered a lot about how to debrief with your kids and check in with the kids every day and how to teach your staff how to do that. And have had some interesting discussion about that and on the comments on CampHacker and by emails as well. We wanted to now take the second step and go into what it's like to do that with staff. How can you connect with them about how their day's going and how you can scale that. When you're a cabin counselor and you're responsible for 8 kids, or you're a CIT director and you're responsible for 16, that's kind of imaginable. You can imagine how you do that. But how as a camp do you keep connected with a staff of 30, 75, 150, or 250 people and not make them feel like they just disappear into the machine? So we wanted to make sure we come back and address this really directly. So we want to talk about what we can do to debrief that. And so I think what I'll start with is just a connection with each of you as to what it's like for you, what you want to do to connect with people every day. Actually, so I'd like to start with Nuego and see how you folks, what the goal is for you for connecting with your staff on a regular basis.
Sure. So we have weekly staff meetings that we rebranded family meetings. So we call all of our staff meetings family meetings, which makes it feel like an episode of Full House. So it's way more fun than an actual staff meeting. And our goal in connecting with staff, as opposed to just debriefing with kids, where you're kind of front loading the day and summarizing how yesterday went, our goal with staff debrief is to give them an opportunity to be vulnerable with one another. That's kind of the connection they crave, and to admit where they need areas of help, where they're struggling, and give them feedback for how we can help them. In a large group setting, that can be a challenge. So we do that at our family meetings, very short, but we also partner up each of our staff with an individual supervisor of our leadership staff team, and they meet with them one-on-one throughout the week. So it's not a whole staff debrief, but a one-on-one debrief.
Right on. And Laura, you're growing in size, and I know that this sort of intentionality is very important to you. How'd you deal with it last year, and how do you anticipate dealing with this going forward?
Yeah. Well, last year we didn't do a good job at this, and we only ran for 1 week, but it became like just glaringly apparent to us how important, even when you have a staff of, 20, 25 people that are all your best friends, which is what Jack and I were grateful enough to have last year, we still needed time to really check in and make those people feel valued. And like you said, Jaleesa, able to be vulnerable in front of you. I totally agree that that's one of the most important things we can give our staff, is that ability to be transparent and honest with us. And that goes both ways. So this coming summer, Jack and I are going to try to do weekly mastermind groups. Kind of the idea of you get together with people at all different levels of the organization. So it won't be like the director's mastermind group and the assistant director's mastermind group and the DIBDR and the staff mastermind group. It'll be people from the kitchen staff, as well as, our EMTs meeting. So kind of one person from each level in a group together. And basically you sit on the hot seat for it'll be during an hour, at camp. And so you'll sit on the hot seat and kind of say, this is the thing that I really want to work on. Does anybody have any advice and feedback for me in terms of this? And what we're hoping is that it will create a space where staff can be very self-aware of what they are looking to get better on and to share with, and that we as directors can kind of model that vulnerability in that space.
That's amazing. I love that idea. How about for you, Joe? What's the goal in terms of regular connections with your staff?
Well, regular connections, we have a staff member who's in charge of that, who's called the Camper Counselor Care Coordinator. So they deal with behavioral issues that might arise with campers, sort of like a lifeguard for behavior, right? You want to prevent it before it happens. But they're also responsible for those daily staff connections. So they're out and about, wandering around, talking to staff. At the end of the week, we do our Sweet Yaz, which is just a much quicker version of Roses and Thorns, which we discussed at the last episode. We also did, we do a morning check-in with all of our staff, which is just going over the day, but it's also a check-in to see where they're at. It's a standing meeting. We don't allow them to sit down and get comfortable, but it allows them to talk about what their night was like with their campers and any issues that might have arisen. I like the mastermind idea that Laura has put out. We base something like that during our staff training sessions on our Think Together groups, which is a term we got from the Buckeye Leadership Workshop. So Think Together groups are just groups of people who come together and sort of talk about a question or a theme for that specific night. And it can be an hour to, 45 minutes to an hour is normally what it takes. So I think that connection is important. We also do, and I'm very, very, very in support of weekly evaluations, which I know isn't the daily debrief, but it gives the staff that exactly what they're doing, what they're not doing, right, every week. And it's more of a talk about their goals that they've set early on in the summer. And we have that down on paper. So those check-ins can be very specific about what they want to achieve over the course of the summer and how you go about that in your daily work.
Oh, yeah. So, so let me go back to Stafford in a second, but I'm just something you said, Joe, made me think of something. And I'll start with you, Joe. Who is the person that you check in with? Who looks after you?
Oh, that is a great question you ask. It's lonely at the top, and that is the thing for all camp directors. When you're young and you don't realize it, your first couple of summers of knowing that there is no one sometimes is a very disconcerting feeling. I check in with my wife, who also happened to be a camp director in the past.
Yep.
And I can now check in with my current full-time summer camp director, Jessica, and just to see where we're at. If I have true issues or concerns or things, oftentimes I'm talking that out with my summer camp director, and if it goes above her, because a lot of times what we as camp directors need to check in or think about is often a different level than the leadership team, meaning that we need to be very aware, and as a camp director, you should be very aware that we have a policy at camp where it flows up, meaning that if you have an issue, you need to go to someone who can solve that issue. And so talking to a counselor talking to another counselor about something they're upset about, or that they want changed, well, can that counselor affect that change, or does it go up? And if the leadership team is together in a room and we're making a decision and not everybody agrees with that decision, when you leave the room, everybody needs to be a united front on that decision, so there's no dissension. But it's also certain issues simply don't go. I have no need to share it with my summer camp director if it's not applicable and going to help her do her job. So there's times when information has been brought to my attention that that doesn't go down at all, and doesn't affect. Although it will affect their jobs, it won't directly affect their jobs, meaning that by them not knowing that information, it doesn't hurt or harm them or cause them not to be able to do their job. It just means that it's part of the puzzle. So there are days I need someone to check in with, and I use my wife the most for that.
Okay. Excellent. Right on. Thank you. Jaleesa, who looks after you?
I, like Joe, I check in with my husband, who is not in the camping world, nor has he ever been. Our first date, he asked me, "So you're like a camp counselor that works year-round?" Like, had no clue. And so it's really nice to have a sounding board to bounce stuff off of, who makes the problems that you have seem really small. So when I'm like, this friendship bracelet string, I can't focus on how to get staff to untangle it. And I'm just so frustrated. I spent hours untangling it in the spring, and now it's just a mess again. Whatever I'm ranting about, he'll just kind of take me down a few notches and be like, well, at least all the kids are fed today. And I'm like, all right. And I also check in with my friends who are summer camp directors. So I'll, call Joe if I'm in a bind, or some of my other camp director friends. Neva, I call her constantly throughout the summer, especially if I need advice on how to do something or a place to go. I think having that community of professionals, I just started in a mastermind group this year, and it's been amazing with Anne from Green River Preserve, and Elizabeth from Camp Allegheny, and Maddie from Skyland Camp for Girls. So it's great to have those three to talk to as well, when you've got someone you need to check in with.
Yeah, right on. That's awesome. And for you, Laura, what's the plan?
Yeah, so I think like both Joe and Jaleesa, checking in with Jack is probably my first go-to. And he'll have a just as much of an understanding of what's happening at camp as I will. And so kind of, it's a very immediate check-in. But beyond that, I think Scott Arizella, Sylvia Van Merten, and James, who helped found camp and get camp off the ground last year, they're moving on to advisory board member type roles this coming summer. So they won't be directly at the program, but are always a phone call away. So I feel lucky to have their support, as well as the other, camp directors that Jack and I are in touch with.
Right. All right. That's awesome. So that was just a bit of distraction. It just made me realize that it's hard as Joe said, it's hard being the one at the top, but it's I think important for us to set up our own network if the organization isn't set up to have that. So let's come back to talk about some of the stuff that you could do. And we talked a lot about weeklies, and I want to focus on the push us down into the dailies and think about some of the most creative things we can do to do that. And I often say when I'm presenting that the single most important thing you can teach your counselors to do is to have a one-on-one conversation with a kid. And the best thing you can do for retention is to have a kid know that at least one adult talked to them this week, and not they weren't just lost in the mass of people, or group of 8 in overnight camp, or 15 to 20 in day camp. They weren't just lost in the massing, screaming, moving, laughing, singing mass of that. They were seen as an individual. And I think that that's important for us to do as directors too. It's important to figure out a way that each person gets a connection. And it can be a direct supervisor. It should be a direct supervisor who has even 30-second conversation with somebody just to see how things are going. But I think it's also important from the top down, and we went so far as to keep a staff list on our desks, each Beth and I, and would just remind each other to check the list and put a tick beside people when we had just that moment of calm. How's it going? It could have been standing at the salad bar, but it was not just like, hey, how's it going? It was how are things going in your cabin? Just a real honest connection for a very short period of time, and we would track that in a way to make sure that we were being conscientious about that. The other thing that we instituted to have, this was probably more on a weekly basis when it was formalized, but on a daily basis a little less informal, was to have an accountability partner who was not at the same level as you, so it didn't matter. It was sort of organized intentionally to partner people up, and came from a conference idea I heard years ago about wellness partners, about making sure that people have somebody to check in with, to look after them, and to push them to do the right thing. Are you getting enough sleep? Are you eating well? You look dehydrated, that kind of thing. And wellness partners we've talked about often on the podcast before, but that connection is intentional. People are given time to build that relationship and to have time set aside to talk to that person. Wellness partners got shortened to wellies, and there are many people in our camp sphere who still have special sit-downs and meals with wellies that they've had for the past 10 years. And that's a connection, that intentionality has lasted beyond the day-to-day stuff. So, does anybody else have stuff that they encourage staff to do on a day-to-day, or tips or tricks for that? Yeah, Laura.
I have a thought. We're going to try this again this summer, so I'll let you know how it goes after. But one of the things that we picked up from visiting the Agile Learning Center, which are a network of kind of independent learner, self-directed learning associations that are kind of cropping up in big cities across the country, yep. And they're using the idea of Agile software technology and like the streamlining process of how you innovate to kind of run their school processes. And one of the things they do during meetings is use a lot of hand symbols. Oh, yeah. So we're thinking about how to incorporate hand signals as like this like small insert of an inside joke into a conversation when you're passing, one group's headed to the pool or to the pond or lake or whatever, and one group's headed to, the maker space. You can kind of check in with each other. And we hope that it trickles down into campers and that staff are able to tell, campers, oh, when you see staff do spirit fingers at each other, it means that like they really like what the other person is doing and they're just giving them like positive vibes. Or, we learned this one from Marty Ferguson at Camp. He used to work at Camp Chief Ure. Now he works for CampMinder. But the idea that during a staff meeting, you could throw up a hook and it would let everybody else in the meeting or the community space know that you have something to add to the conversation, but that you don't want to interrupt, what's flowing in terms of the conversation at that moment. And so, we hope that staff and then campers can also pick up on these kind of giving each other feedback in a fun camp-like way.
Yeah.
Just another level of, this doesn't happen everywhere else in the world. Not everybody kind of communicates through hand symbols. So there's a bunch of them too. Like we're thinking this one kind of would mean that I see, and it's like the universal empathy symbol we're thinking at camp. So it's like, I see where you're coming from, and I totally hear, your struggle, and I'm on the same page with you on that. So being able to do that, like as a silent gesture of solidarity with whatever was happening in the moment.
Right. That's awesome. One other hand signal from Marty that we've talked about on the podcast before, but I don't want to miss because it actually suits this topic really well. Is that they had a signal that the staff member needed help, and it may not be a gross emergency. It might just be that they needed another person to step in and deal with this situation with a camper.
Right.
Marty said it often came up when there were parents
Right.
on board, and a parent would be asking really tough questions of a counselor, or asking, trying to ask them really pointed stuff of a counselor. And so if they ever tented their fingers and put their fingers together, just sort of held them in front of them while they're talking to people, then that was a signal that they needed somebody to come in and join the conversation. And that's such an awesome thing in terms of check-in that I love that idea. It's so great.
Yeah. Low barrier of entry too. Like everybody can have those symbols. It doesn't require that you are better at sharing your feelings or not. It's just everybody can jump in.
Right. Julissa, is there any stuff that you have heard of or that you practice in terms of making daily connections?
Yeah, one of the best phrases I ever got from Scott Arazala is, "Hey, can I talk to you for a minute?" And he said, we often as supervisors, that's our entryway to giving staff negative constructive feedback. Mm-hmm. Like, hey, can I talk to you a minute? Let me tell you about this thing you need to fix.
Right.
So I try to make a conscious effort every day to do 10. Hey, can I talk to you for a minute?
Right.
And none of those 10 can be negative feedbacks.
Right.
So I'll pull a staff and say, hey, can I talk to you for a minute? I love the way that you had all of your kids singing on the way to the dining hall. You're a freaking champ. That was amazing. And then I'll step away, and that's it. I won't add any negatives. I just try and do 10 praises immediately for things I've done well. And then when staff hear the phrase of, hey, can I talk to you for a minute? Their stomach doesn't necessarily drop. They don't break out into cold sweats. So that for me is a good daily check-in. I'm also our camp's photographer.
Right.
And so by getting out on camp myself with the camera, I'm able to do those daily check-ins, because as I'm taking a photo, I can, pose all the kids. And as I'm taking the photo, chit chat with the staff, like, hey, the swim class is great. Love it. And then move on. So that's a great way when you've got that camera in your hand to not be seen as you're going around to observe. If you don't have the clipboard checklist, it's a little less intimidating to get those check-ins and those debriefs that are not evaluation-based.
Right. Yeah, that's awesome. This is kind of evaluation-based, but not formal evaluation-based. But we certainly made it a practice to identify people who were in one job who would be great at being the next job or changing into the next role, and certainly making sure they left camp understanding that we want them to be in another new role in the next year. But we found that's sort of table stakes. You have to make sure that happens, so that person's looking forward to and thinking about the new job. But we found if you can sort of figure that stuff out and tell people in week 2, and they've got 6 weeks to ruminate on that, then they really rise to that position in so many ways the summer before. And there's been LATs that we've spoken to, said we're really looking forward to seeing them be counselors. First-year counselors that we said, I think sometime's going to come that you're going to be the program director here, and I think it's going to be awesome. And those people really rise to that sort of stuff. Joe, how about you? Is there something on a daily that you've heard of or that you folks are trying to make connections?
I think for us, it's the trying to get together, and I try to make daily connections with staff in the sense of that they see me every day, because I'm not part of the program every day. That's just not the way we have it set up here. But I am part of the program in the sense of chapel every day. And it's so chapel for us is a bunch of high energy songs. You've seen it, Travis.
Yeah.
Some weird improvised skits and some activities. And years ago, I just got to the point where I was like, okay, well, it's just a thing I do. I leave my office at this time every day and I go play guitar at chapel, leading songs and whatnot. It took me a while to realize how important this time was for the staff as well, because we years ago tried to give our staff 2 hours of free time every day. That's a standard that the United Church sets. And so when you're scheduling that, though, it can just depend on the program. And so our previous program directors tried to program that during chapel, saying, okay, well, great, we can have these 3 counselors be off for this hour, and that's your free time. And what we found is staff who had free time during chapel would show up at chapel because they really wanted to be there. Yeah. And so it's this one of these daily check-ins, and it's really easy for me at chapel is every day I touch base with 2 or 3 counselors during the activity time when I'm not doing something and when their cabin group is getting something ready, just to check in and it lets them see a side of Joe that that they don't see at the Sunday meetings or the Friday meetings, because you're talking about all the things that need to happen or whatnot. So as far as our staff, I know that we try to check in. I know that our leadership team is out and about and trying to check in with people all the time. But once again, it goes back down to the camper counselor care coordinator, or someone who can, when staff have an issue, they can come forward to that one person who then can divvy it out to whoever needs to talk to someone and see if there's issues.
Laura, is there anything else that what these guys have said that inspired you to think about?
I love, Jaleesa, you were mentioning something about the camera, and I was thinking about how Dan Weir also does the camera kind of easy way to approach a check-in. And he also is inspiring to me in the way that he does the meat grill sessions with different villages. I don't know if I have all the details correct, but I think he buys meat to grill on an open fire or somewhere in the cabins, and then meets with the counselors. And that's a way for him to kind of humanize his position, but also really check in with the staff. And that has always been very inspiring to me.
Right. He does that in the evenings, check in with different villages, and brings them food treats. In Dan's case, it's meat to grill.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, I had a couple of notes when I was preparing for this, some things that we've done or we've seen or would do if we were camp directing again, that just been collecting over the years that I thought I'd share. And feel free to jump in, anybody. There's a couple of things that I've seen. One we definitely saw work was it was a gift to us from Camp Winona in Ontario, Jeff Bradshaw, where they would spend time every week recalling great moments in camping, and they call them GMICs, and people would share in a group setting great moments in camping. And we found over the years that the best way to front load this was to say, thanking someone for stepping in and helping out with your cabin, that's fine. Again, that's good. We should be recognizing those moments at the time and thanking them for that. But a great moment in camping is that the next level, that extra level of sensitivity and noticing skills. Again, it's a good quote from Scott about noticing skills. And, seeing something happen and picking up some things that others do, not for the attention, but for the benefit of the kids. So it's really putting other kids first. And my classic example to get people to understand what I mean is watching, at the end of a cold and rainy day, watching the last group of little boys go down canoeing and having the last camper not be able to find a dry life jacket. And, just making the worst, almost crying face to put on this soaking wet, disgusting, cold life jacket. Then me seeing the instructor who'd been wearing a rain jacket all day take her dry life jacket off, put it on the kid, and her put the wet life jacket on. Like, that to me is classic great moment in camping. It's like, sensitive instructor sees something, deals with it, doesn't make show, but I was grateful that I was there to capture it, and we could share that in the meetings. We took that instance of, like, that's what the GMIC discussions were, and made that into something that was recorded. One of those little moments of almost perfect moments of our culture to not be ephemeral. And so we have a sketchbook that people write in at those meetings, and those little stories, 2 or 3 sentences, are captured. And whenever we have an alumni event, the GMIC book goes out, people beeline straight for it, just to check out all of those things that they were there for, the ones that went before them, the things that came after. And that really is not so much a daily debrief, but something that you're training people all the time to be looking for the moments that are missing. One of my concerns as a director is that we recognize in camp all of the orange people, all of the people who are in front, singing, happy, love to be in announcements, love to dress up, and we have to be so conscious of watching the people, and there are usually more of them than the orange people, who are sensitive, quieter, and are the ones that, in a lot of ways, really take care of our community. And so training people to look for GMICs was a good way to recognize key people that aren't necessarily the ones who are up front all the time. So I've got more, but Laura, you go. I'm happy if you've learned stuff from your travels.
I've thrown up my spirit fingers for you. I love that. That seems like a really incredible idea. I think it would be fun to bring that into our program this summer.
Yeah. It's a living memory in lots of ways of the perfect moments of camp culture.
Yeah.
So other things, GMICs, I said, one moment that happens every day is not a conversational check-in, but we were able to take about 1/5 of our staff and put the kids in an area where they were sort of contained and let them play for an hour, and then 4/5 of the staff would get together, and that meeting would happen every day at 6:30 every night, and it always opened with a gratitude journal. And so people were to take some moments to journal a few specific things. And gratitude journals are probably pretty common. Just think about 3 things you're grateful for and a goal for tomorrow. And just taking that moment to journal is a very great psychological benefit to do that. We're redirecting now. So that time was the lead into a staff Bible study. We're redirecting now in a non-faith-based camp who would still prioritize that time as a staff together, and would still do journaling and some other things that would carry on. I think singing together would be, in a non-faith-based camp, would be essential to us, as it was in the faith-based camp. But you can get the 5-minute journal. There's a 5-minute journal you could buy. They're kind of expensive, but all it does is that each page repeats the same questions over and over again. So they put this out there. This is not stolen from the 5-minute journal. This is stuff they put out there. But the things they ask people to fill out every day: 3 things I'm grateful for today. What would make today great? Some sort of affirmation. I am this. I am embodying this spirit, this idea. 3 amazing things that happened in the past 24 hours, and how could I have made this day better? And even if I wasn't at a camp where we were able to prioritize time together as most of the group of staff, I think would find time for journaling, where some senior staff would take the kids in the dining hall and sing and play games with them, while the others were given time to journal. I think it's learning a lot in the last few years about the value of journaling and how it helps people sustain themselves over this 8 months of crazy, the sprint of 8 weeks long, maybe it's this 8-week-long sprint. Those are some of the things that I wrote down in preparation for this discussion.
That was Robin.
Any
I got
others?
one.
Laura?
Yeah. Well, I recognize that I'm approaching a very sensitive and controversial topic, but I thought maybe it fit.
Yeah.
our camp has technology as a part of the program, so kids can bring technology. What ended up happening last year was that most of the kids left all their devices in the cabin turned off for most of the week. But our staff also had their cell phones on them. And so something that kind of organically happened that we're thinking we want to capitalize on this coming summer was this group text between staff. And it was this immediate thread of updates and inside jokes that were kind of a bonding tool for staff. I know that there's a ton of worries and not, are we using this in a positive way? This coming summer, we aren't going to have a ton of not access to Wi-Fi on campgrounds except for in the dining hall, and the cell phone service is mainly Verizon. So I'm not sure how this is going to really cut down on it, but before summer, we're going to organize a Slack group to have staff kind of share things that they're excited about and be able to channel different conversations and monitor things that are happening and get people introduced to each other before the summer starts. But I'm thinking, during the summer, maybe Slack is an incredible way to have an immediate journal that is something you can constantly check into and constantly refer back to, or if you're just kind of needing a pick-me-up from the day, be able to log on and check in that way. I recognize that I think personally I'm not the kind of person who gets the dopamine rush from technology as much as I do from checking in face-to-face with somebody. But I'm open to the idea that maybe this is a tool. Maybe this is another way to kind of check in and reflect back and journal, like you're saying, Travis. I think that's really important.
Right on.
Collecting stories.
Yeah. Collecting stories. Yeah, so good. Teresa, you look like you've got an idea.
Yeah, we're a big fan of surprises at Camp Newaygo, specifically surprises for staff, because I think staff work so hard to make the surprises happen for campers, where they'll come upon a great moment in camping. So whenever we do times with staff where all the campers are being watched and we've just got the staff, like the situations you were talking about, Travis, the daily meeting, those might happen once a week or once every 2 weeks for us. And we like to do surprises for staff. So one meeting we've done in the past is a puppy meeting. So we went and got puppies from the local animal shelter and put them in our Gaga court. And so when the staff came to the meeting, there was just puppies everywhere. And then we kind of do our how's your day going? How's everybody doing? And how can you be mad when you've got a Gaga court full of puppies? This summer, so if any of my staff are listening, don't listen to this podcast because spoiler alert, we're doing a staff debrief called Sushi and Sumo. And so the staff will come upon sumo suits, the inflatable kinds that you put on. And then we're going to have several tables filled with various forms of sushi, including dessert sushi. And that's how we'll do an informal check-in where the leadership staff will be able to say, how's it going? How's your summer? How's this hanging? And so I like staff being able to be surprised by ridiculous things like that are well beyond what their imagination would be, because that makes the debriefs and the check-ins something that they really look forward to. And it's not just an awkward, let's sit on these couches and talk about our feelings. They have something else going on to make it a social event and make it really something big in your program.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I love that. Really cool.
George, do you have any final thoughts or things that inspired you that you've seen in the past, etc.?
I know that growing up, when I was a counselor, one of the things that was most powerful to me is, we did our morning staff meetings right after morning watch, and we would then have prayer pal. So it's a Christian-based camp, and essentially it's not the same person every day, and you can do this in a non-Christian-based camp. It was just a time sometimes it was just a long line folded in half, and the person you're across from is who your prayer pal is at that moment in time. And you spend literally 30 seconds to, 30 seconds to a couple of minutes, either praying with each other or just talking and speaking to that person about what your hopes are for the day. And it was just, when I was a counselor, it was a really effective way for me to have someone to share my fears with, which in a Christian-based setting or in any religion-based setting, it's easy to share your fears in a prayer because that's right. It's open. It's a lot harder to share your fears or your hopes in person with someone. But if that idea that just to give them that extra 2 minutes to 5 minutes at the end of the staff meeting to make sure they make a personal connection with someone. It doesn't have to be the same someone every day. But looking back on my time as a counselor, that was certainly one of the most powerful things that I had for a daily check-in as we went and really formed a lot of what I do.
Very cool. Very cool. Well, it's great shares, like so many good ideas. I'm grateful to the three of you for coming back. I'm sorry, where's Paul? I'm sure he had lots of really, lots of good stuff too, but wasn't able to make it. So thank you to the three of you for covering this in a smart way. And those of you who are listening or watching on YouTube, I would encourage you at this point, if you've got some good ideas, do us a quick favor and go to CampHacker/iTunes. And give us an honest review of the podcast and whether it's helped you, how it's helped you, that kind of thing. That is really helpful. It's one of the easiest things you could do to help us spread the word about the CampHacker podcast. So thank you to those of you who've already done it. We've had some amazing reviews, and we always appreciate the people who have done that. That said, it's now time for us to move on to our Tool of the Week.
Tool of the Week.
So we invite our panelists every time to bring a tool that helps them be a better camp director. And Laura, I wonder if you could start us off with your tool this week.
Sure. So we are a camp on a shoestring budget to the extreme. And so my tool this week is a way that we found super successful to market for really no money. You can contact your local library and see if they want to run classes and have you sponsor the class. So we did this for spring break. We did on one day we did cooperative games, and the next day we did like wearable art. We did one day with like healthy finger food snacks, and one day with we did felting at the library. And we had people, 15 to 20 people sign up each day and got to interact with different families, got to talk with parents and hand out flyers, got to meet kids and really talk with them about it. And then the library reimbursed us for all of the supplies that we used. So it didn't cost us any money. And I think that it was a great way for us to get out into the community. I have a series of meetings set up one-on-one with families from that week, this coming week, to kind of see if they're in it for a week this summer. So yeah, that's my shoestring budget marketing idea.
That's awesome. It's a lot like Jaleesa's PE classes that they take over and come into. Yeah.
Oh, cool. Yeah.
Yeah. No, it goes and does phys ed for a day, Jalisa?
We do, yeah. We do a full day of phys ed classes, and we do it right after spring break. So we just did one Monday and Tuesday of this week. We love like 5th, 6th grade as a grade age, and these classes are huge. It's like 65 kids. And then we sell Camp Newaygo the last 5 minutes. It's great.
Who do you bring in to do that with you, or is it just a one-man show? One person show?
Our program director.
Cool. Very cool.
That's awesome. Good. Great idea, Laura. Thank you.
Yep.
Joe, what's your tool?
Actually, this week I have 2 tools, Travis. My first tool is audible.com. I searched, and I'm surprised that we as a group have never given Audible as a tool of the week. So Audible, for those who don't know, is a way to listen to books and essentially read a book through your ears. I've been using it recently. I'm subscribed and get a credit a month, which essentially buys me any book that they have, pretty much. Right now I'm listening to Under the Dome by Stephen King, which why I thought of Audible today is because yesterday I toured around our county and delivered our summer camp brochures to all the schools. And I got a good 4 to 5 hours of listening into a book, which is always great. And so I would recommend Audible. I cannot find an affiliate link because I'm not signed up as a program, but Travis might have one. I also recommend, for business books as well. So Starting with Why is a great book. You can listen to 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. And then I also keep some books that are just must listens to me every so often. There's a book called The Brothers K by David James Duncan, which is a 42-hour book. Yeah. So I only listen to it once every few years, but it is an amazing to listen to and go from there. So the second tool I have is just ThinkCamp. So ThinkCamp is running again this year. ThinkCamp.ca is where you're going to go for information. It's in November this year. Travis, I knew you were there last year. It's just a gathering of camp people who talk about camp. Yeah. And from the perspective of it's like being on a podcast for a day and a half, where you just get to talk about camp and share ideas and do all those great things. So it is November the 15th, 16th, and 17th of 2016, and it's being hosted here at Pierce Williams.
Yeah, and I can highly recommend it as a great couple-day conversation about how to improve and grow your camp and camp in general. It's a great experience. Jaleesa, what is your tool?
I am pumped about my tool of the week because we at Camp Nuevo have been loving this. It's called Good 360, and it's a program through your local Home Depot, which I don't know if they have that in Canada, but Home Depot stores here in America are pretty prevalent. And each Home Depot store has the opportunity to select a charity partner. And any custom orders that Home Depot receives of cabinetry or flooring and it gets returned to Home Depot, they can't resell those orders. So they give it away to their local charity of choice. And when you do a partnership with them, you sign on for at least a year, but they encourage even more than that. So this is something that you do kind of long term. And for us at Camp Nuevo, in the midst of capital campaigns where we're renovating like multiple camp properties, we have gotten like free carpet, free tile, free flooring, vanities. Like every camp building right now is like an episode of Property Brothers. It's just shoved full of all of this great building equipment. I will say a caveat, you do have to accept like the whole palette of stuff, right, and you might take some stuff sight unseen. So we got in our last trip about 100 grill sets, like tongs and spatulas and things. And once you take the stuff, you can't resell it. You have to either give it away or throw it away or use it. So around the lakes, we're putting together little info packets of like, see what's grilling at Camp Nuevo this summer for our event. Yeah. And we're passing them out to all of our lake neighbors. So you get a free grill set, courtesy of Camp Nuevo. Amazing. But we've gotten like garden stuff, like planters. We've gotten, oh man, it's been unbelievable. We've been able to redo and renovate so many things at camp because we have free materials, and it's so easy to apply, and several Home Depot stores are looking for charity partners, and we've actually been asked by multiple Home Depot stores to be their charity partner, but we can't take that kind of volume. So if you're in West Michigan, I know some Home Depots looking for you.
Right on. That's cool. So do you approach the store, or do you get online, or how do you make the connection?
Yeah, I've got the link online that I posted to our tool of the week. So that's how people would start. They would find their nearest Home Depot and say, do you have a charity partner? And if they say no, congratulations, you're it. It is a very easy application process because there's stuff, they want to get rid of it in these back rooms. It's just sitting there.
Right. Is there paperwork? Do you have to issue receipts for the value of the products?
No paperwork. You're just their charity partner. You go twice a month and you grab the stuff and go.
Wow. Right on. That's very cool. That's awesome. So, as Lisa says, we do have the link online. If you go to camphacker.tv/podcast, look for this, which is episode 90, and find the show notes there. Matt will be writing up the blog post and putting the tools of the week in there. So, very cool idea, Lisa. Thank you. Mine is also a link that you will need to go to camphacker.tv/podcast to find. It is an article online that I found that's called 6 Brilliant Tips for Getting Comfortable Being on Camera. And I try to be sensitive to this when I'm presenting because I am one of those camp counselors who loves to be in the front of people and loves to dress up and do all that. And I know that it's not everybody. That's probably 20% of the camp population. So there are a lot of camp directors in the world who are not, as I and Joe are the ones who love to be in front dancing. So I try to be sensitive to that when I tell people that you need to find ways to tell your story. And quite often, I do mean that I think you need to talk to your camera and tell more stories from camp. Figure out how to do that. So here's a quick little website, some good tips to getting comfortable being on camera, whether it's a really formal sit down with a videographer and talk about the different program areas like a traditional camp video, or it's something more on the spot, on the go, doing 10-second Snapchats that have value for your customers. So I thought it would be I've looked at it. It looks like a great resource for people to just get more comfortable and understand what's going on there, and be then more equipped to tell their camp stories. So check that out at camphacker.tv/podcast. So great show today. Thank you to all of you. Jaleesa, thank you for coming back on for episode number 2 with us.
Yay! Thanks, Travis. It was great.
How can people connect with you to if they have follow-up questions from some of the brilliant things you said today?
Thanks. They can email me directly, and my email is Jaleesa, which is my first name, JALISA @campnuego.org.
Thanks, Jaleesa. And Laura, grateful that you came back. I don't know what the count is for a number of shows that you've been on, but I'm grateful to have you here. How can people follow up with you if they need?
You can email me directly as well. Please email me. My email is laura@campstompingground.com, or follow us on Instagram and Facebook at campstompingground.com. Or Camp Stomping Ground. Always do that.
Right on. Thanks, Laura. And Joe, How about you?
Well, people can find out all about Pierce Williams and what I do there at campisbetter.com. They can find out my personal blog at yoyojoe.com, and all of my links to social media are on that website. You can also sign up for my tiny letter, which is really tiny and doesn't go out that often, but you can sign up for it.
Awesome.
Thanks.
Thanks for being on, Joe, and sharing some good stuff. I want to thank you to those of you who are listening, those of you who are watching this on YouTube. We're always grateful for the comments. Please do reach out to our hosts. They honestly mean it. You can reach out to them and ask them questions and follow up. If you need to get a hold of me, it's travis@camphacker.tv. And I am at CampHacker on all of the socials, so that's all one word, CampHacker. And love to hear from people. Got some great emails after our last discussion. So really super grateful for people that let us know where they're listening. That was a nice thing. So I want to thank Trey specifically, who, when I said, please let us know where you're listening from, Trey took a picture of himself on his campus, walking around listening to the show. So shout out to Trey from Camp Whiteman in Connecticut for doing that. If others do the same, take a picture of yourself listening to this. I'm happy to give you a shout out on the show. So I also want to take one quick second and say thank you to Matt Hansberger, who is our producer and editor, and we're always grateful for the work that you do, Iskis, and making us look and sound good. So thank you very much to everyone who joined us, and thanks for the evening, friends.
The Camp Hacker podcast is brought to you by Beth and Travis Allison, summer camp leadership training and marketing consultants. Thanks for listening. Camp Hacker, bringing your world into focus.
Hey, it's Travis. Camp directors often tell me they're just too tired to take on anything new. That's exactly why my free Resilient Camp Blueprint Diagnostic exists. It doesn't add work, it shows you progress. Quick, free, repeatable, you'll know if your systems are paying off without the guesswork. Try it today at camp.mba/Travis. That's camp.mba/Travis.